I've only added seam allowance essentially down the seam line, okay, that's going to form the pleat, just because, you know, we're just doing a paper tack up so that we can understand that process. But if it was an actual pattern, you would need to then obviously add seam allowance where required to join the rest of the garment, hem allowance, etc. Okay, so there's one last thing that we really need to mark. So this apex point where the seam goes straight and then we start to find our pleat placement line and pleat fold line, that needs to be marked with a tailor's tack, okay? So we mark that with our drill hole. So really, if you just extend that and circle that, because as you can see, the actual seam shape comes out like that, but then we also need to then continue stitching to this point to fully form the pleat. So that happens on this side and also on the corresponding piece. We're going to construct our paper tack up. So when you've completed this, you should just be either putting that in your technical and exploratory folio, or there's a place in your pattern making book where you could just staple it into the top. Okay, so first of all, we're just going to lift the centerpiece, okay, and place it on top, just as if we were going to construct that seam. Okay, so if you've been really accurate, all your balance marks should match. Now I'm just going to use a stapler to sort of construct this. When you're doing paper tack ups, it is quite good to use a stapler because they sort of act a little bit like stitches. Okay, you don't need obviously as many, just a few. So you can see I'm going along that center line. Okay, I've got to the balance mark. I also want to go to that point there. Okay, and along this edge of my kick pleat. An important point is that tailor's tack point. Okay, so basically what happens when we make our pleat is we stitch our seam along the shape, overlock it together, then we come back on the straight sewer and we stitch from this point to this point, back tacking. Okay, so we also need to secure right down to that point there. We're going to fold our piece back along that seam line, okay, because remember that line there is going to become our pleat placement line on the center panel. So the seam is sitting towards the center, okay, so I'm folding along there. Along that line, okay, on the center panel, you want to fold along the pleat fold line, okay. So you can see now, okay, I'll just tip through that shaping. Okay, so you can see how that hem line that we squared off actually has been proved, okay. So again, if we can demonstrate that sort of movement ability that the kick pleat sort of creates. So we can pull that open. So remember that view on the skirt that we had? So you can see here, pleat placement line is on the side panel, pleat fold line is on the center panel. So this bit here is our pleat depth or our pleat underlay, okay, pleat height. So you can see how that ends up sitting quite straight. And the last little thing that finishes it, okay, is with a top stitch, okay, on the outside. We stitch down to that point to stop that from moving away, okay, and then obviously on the skirt example, this was also top stitched all the way along that seam. Okay, so that completes the kick pleat.